Hello, I am Sadat Usmani. I am applied linguist, and my topic today is above the clause complex, a reading of M.K. Halliday's Introduction to Functional Grammar, and chapter 7 deals with the clause complex. And clause complex is concerned with organization of clauses. Uh, that is why it is treated as a level above the clause. And I will be giving a plain reading of the chapter, and it is a published book, Introduction to Functional Grammar, and it is available in market. Therefore, I will be going through the book content, and where there is a need for some clarification of the concepts, I will be adding my own understanding of the content. And for further, but this is just a plain reading, so if anyone is interested, they can read the book by themselves for a deeper understanding. I am not. This is just a disclaimer that I am not promoting this book in any way, but because it is, I used Halliday's functional grammar as systemic functional grammar as methodology in my research in PhD. Therefore, uh, that is my interest in this reading and the background for my reading this content. The notion of clause complex. So Halliday says that in chapter 3 through 5 we explored the internal organization of the clause as a multifunctional construct, and in chapter 6 we discussed the makeup of the units functioning as elements in this construct. So first 3 to 5 chapters and then 6th chapter, they are concerned with within the clause construction, groups and phrases, and constituency within the clause. And now this chapter 7 is concerned with how clauses are linked to one another by means of some kind of logico-semantic relation to form clause complexes representing sequences of figures or moves that are presented as textually related messages. Now, move is a typical term which is used in genre studies, and uh, so this also has a link with genre studies. So if someone is interested in genre, they may find it useful to identify how clauses are joined together, and the combination of clauses, more than one clause, like two or more clauses, Halliday refers to them as clause complex. And the clause complexes, how they are formed, how they are joined together, these pertain to the genre specific. This is one of the genre specific feature of the construction of text and the development of text. So this also is useful in identifying how within a certain genre the clauses are joined together and which resources are used for this purpose. And move in genre studies, Halliday refers to it as sequence of figure. in chapter 1. So now he refers back to chapter 1. We introduced symbols for representing boundaries between clauses in a clause complex and between clause complexes. Sometimes clause nexus is also used as a term for referring to a combination of clause complexes. And we noted the relationship between clause complexes in the grammar and orthographic sentences in the graphology, and tone sequences in the phonology. So, and he gives an example: the people just stick together. This is one clause, because they have to. Another clause, because it's socially unacceptable to be divorced. Now, here, because has been used to join clauses. The people just stick together, one clause joined with they have to, with conjunction because, and these two clauses are joined, like they have to is joined with because it's socially unacceptable, and then to be divorced is a prepositional phrase, and it's socially unacceptable to be divorced is joined with they have to, with because as a conjunction. Now let's begin by exploring. Now there are a couple of more examples. I won't go through these examples, but I will go to the explanation and how he explains this joining of the clauses. So let's begin by exploring this phenomenon from above. So this is very important, that now we are going beyond the level of a clause and looking at clauses from above. That is, from the point of view of how the flow of events is construed in the development of text at the level of semantics. Now, this is also important point, that when we go above the clause, we are now going to the level of semantics. For example, in narrative text, the flow of events is construed as a series of episodes. Each episode is typically developed step by step as sequences of figures. If someone is interested, the explanation of sequence of figures is found in chapter 5 of the book, that are linked by means of temporal relators. Thus, text 7-1 is a climactic episode in the narrative. The basic relator linking the figures is and, then, although other relators also occur. So, although other relators also occur, and then, so it can be then and then. So both can be used as a sequencing relator. So, for example, the figure is Kukul walked on through the forest. So this is one example of the text that Halliday uses. Kukul walked on through the forest. This is a figure. So primarily clause, which he refers to as figure. Relator is then, this which shows sequence of events. So Kukul walked on through the forest, then he came to a thicket. So here then is serving as a relator between two clauses. So Kukul walked on through the forest, he came to a thicket. These two clauses are joined with relator then, which also shows a time sequence. First he walked on through the forest, then after that he came to a thicket, and then another relator. Meanwhile, figure now starts he heard the faint resulting rustling of leaves. So when he came to a thicket, then he meanwhile sorry so now meanwhile shows that he walked on through the forest, then he came to a thicket. Meanwhile, while this series of events, two events was going on, he was also hearing the faint rustling of leaves. Then he pointed his arrow, yet he saw nothing. Then he crouched low to the ground. So here, then, meanwhile, then, yet, and then. These show how the text is developing, what is happening at the same time with other events, and what happens once one event has ended, second event starts. So that's how this sequence of figures realizes a generic element from the middle part within the overall structure of narratives. This element is the sequence event. Now, so this whole episode is a sequence of events which follows the initiating event. First you walked on, and then everything follows. The dominant strategy for realizing the sequence event is the relation of temporal sequence, time wise, within time, how the events are developing. And narrative is developing into through this text. Thus, even if this relation is not marked explicitly by the lexicogrammar, it can be inferred by the listener or reader based on the properties of the figures that make up the episode. For example, there is no conjunctive item marking the relationship between he pointed his arrow but saw nothing and Kukul crouched low to the ground and moved slowly. So Halliday says that between these clauses there is no explicit conjunction used to join these clauses, but from the construction and the placement of the clauses, we can figure out and we can see that there is a sequence of temporal sequence, like one event is happening after the other, but we can infer. So the inference can be made through the placement and the sequence of the clauses and the placement of clauses within the text. What is happening when, and whether at the same time or after. So which event is taking place after which event, and or possibly one of cause. So there may be either temporal relationship between the clauses or the cause, or one of cause means the relationship of cause may be there. So one event causes the other event to happen, or one event causes the other event not to happen, or one event happens which allows the other event to happen. So there's a time sequence and cause sequence, cause relationship and time relationship. I will stop at this point because it's a lengthy and a whole subject, and it cannot be covered in one episode. Stay tuned for more. Stay tuned for more such readings from the text. So until next, I will say goodbye and stop this here. Thank you for listening.